Hello friends and welcome back. Today's message is one that has been on my heart for a while. I've been noticing, and even within myself, there's this sense of, oh, reality will go back to the way that it was before Corona. I'll just give it some time, let things blow over. It's a storm just like anything else, and it'll go back to the way that things were. And the reality is that is not going to happen. We are in a new space that we have never been in before, and it will never go back to the way that it was, no matter how hard, how desperately our ego wants to try to hold on to that old construct of reality, that old sense of what the world was and who we were in that world. And so what's happening is the crumbling of an old reality, a reality that most of us never even chose, one that we just agreed to from our programming and our conditioning, one that was chosen for us. And, our parents, it was chosen for them too, and in a lot of ways our grandparents. So most of what we've known has not ever been from a place of authenticity. It's been from a place of indoctrination and whatever the culture was programmed to believe in. And this was done in so many ways through the media that we were taking in, and through the advertisements, through what the American dream was supposed to be, through what we thought reality was. Like for me, for example, I viewed reality as, okay, I go to school, I go to college, I get a degree, I go work for a good company, get a good job, kind of work my way up, get to management, have a career, and then I retire, and then I maybe golf, or I play chess, something like that. Thank God that we are, and it takes chaos to, it was so deeply ingrained in our DNA, in our psyches, that we needed something crazy to happen in the world. And by the way, we're just getting started with that. There's a lot more to come. And there's nothing bad or good about it. It's what it is, and we're in a new place. And we're really being called to embrace change. I was somebody who hated change most of my life. I never wanted to travel. I never wanted to get out of the circle of friends that I had. I never wanted to eat new foods. I never really wanted to do much of anything different other than what I had always known. And then 5 years ago, I started going through this huge transformational journey, and all of a sudden I wanted change in every way because I realized that everything in my life was never really coming from an authentic place. It was never really the most me. It was things that were chosen for me that I came into agreement with. And now, Corona, this whole situation, has given people the space. It's giving people the chance to finally burst out of their little bubble, because it's so easy to stay in that small box of reality where you go to work, you get home, you have no energy, you make some dinner, you pop on a movie, and you go to bed, and you wake up and do the same thing, and then the weekend comes, and you have some fun, you hang out with friends, and then it's Monday, and I think we know, we're starting to learn that life is so far beyond that. And right now we have the opportunity to move from a place of a very narrow band of possibility, a very small box of reality, into infinite possibility, into presence where all things exist, all things can be chosen. And there's an opportunity for us to realize that we are the choosers, we are the players of this game, and we get to decide how we want to play the game, rather than the experience of being told how the game is played. You get to come up with the rules. You get to come up with the terms and conditions. You get to rewrite the agreements that are outside of the programming and the conditioned self, the ego, the small self, whatever name that you want to call it, the thing inside of us that desperately wants to hold on to the old story, the old ways. It craves certainty. It just wants to be liked. It wants to fit in. We came up with all these adaptations when we were young kids to make our environments the most stable they could be so that we were the most loved, and we didn't do anything to jeopardize that, and it stripped us away from our authenticity. And we are in a world right now that desperately needs authentic beings. We desperately need a world of people who are following their heart and not just being herded around by what they see on the media, what they're seeing on the news, kept in a state of fear where they're always in that critical thinking. They're always, lack of critical thinking. When you're in survival mode, that goes out the window, and you just stay in a place of safety and comfort, and all of your energy is down in your survival centers. And you don't have any thoughts of creating something new. You don't have any thoughts of inspiration. You can't see the massive opportunities that might be right in front of you. So if you're watching this and you find yourself, maybe subconsciously, you don't really recognize that you're doing it, but you're maybe telling yourself for comfort, oh, things will just go back to the way that they were eventually. It's a little crazy right now, but it'll get back to what it was. Really look at that and be honest with it, and just go through a process where you can understand things are never going to go back to that. And that's a beautiful thing, because that was not working anymore. That the old ways, the old structure that our world was held in is no longer valid. It does not support the level of awareness that we have now. Information is so widely available. There are so many people waking up to deeper truths. There's so many people waking up to things that have been kept hidden for so long. There's so many people waking up to, I feel like there's way more inside of me than what I've been doing. And this path that I was on is not what I want to be on anymore. And so now I get to choose to play the game differently. Whereas I didn't have the awareness and I didn't have the space to do that before. Now we have the opportunity for that collectively. And it's amazing, but it's all about perspective. You could very easily choose to play the game of chaos, fear, market crashes, survival, more second wave, election stuff, all of that. You could choose to get caught and wrapped up in that, which is what most people are doing. And you'll find, as I found, when you tap into that consciousness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of feelings that are you don't like, but you feel like you have to have that because that's just what is being dictated. That's the narrative that's being given. It's not your narrative. It's a narrative from a conglomerate that has an agenda, from news sources that want to steer your mind in a certain way that they want to steer it. But what's important now more than ever is for you to steer your own ship, for you to use the discernment in your own heart and get to be familiar with that. Get to be familiar with your authentic self. Get to be familiar with that knowingness of who you are and getting yourself out of that place of uncertainty. It's okay to have uncertainty and embrace that, but inside you know you're going to be okay. You trust yourself. You trust what life is doing, and you don't let your ego constantly reinforce that story that things are not okay and you're not okay and we're not going to survive through this. And going above that and saying, because that's just your scared inner child, right? So we as the conscious adults and sovereign beings of ourselves, we have to nurture that. We have to nurture that part of us that feels that frightened state. We have to be with that and not suppress it and not shame it, but we be with it. And then so it's like it's soothing your inner child, right? Really, you get to choose, what will this time be for you? Will this be the time that you said, I'm gonna find out who I am. I am gonna create the reality that I would like to create. I'm gonna play the game that I would choose to play. And when you go through this process, it gets a little crazy because just the functionality of your body, the amygdala, the thermostat will see you going outside of the box, and it'll say no and try to do everything it can to bring you back. And you have to see that for what it is, which is why it's so important to be in community with people that are doing this, to be around others who are going through this same process or have gone through this process. And this is not a time to do the lone wolf thing, as I mentioned in another video. This is a time to come together with others who are in a like vibration, a like mindset, right? So, will you take the time to use this space that we're in, this massive opportunity, to stop the trajectory of this path that was never yours? And this sense of self, who is in large part conditioning. And will you say, this is going to be the time in my life, in my story, in my movie, that I woke up, that I said yes to myself, that I said yes to authenticity, that I said yes to trusting in life and trusting this evolution that we're witnessing right now, and to not get caught in the theater that is out there, to not get caught in a narrative that somebody is trying to push on you. And the real narrative is what's in here and how you're choosing to perceive all of this. That is making all the difference. And change is a lot of times uncomfortable, but it's our willingness to embrace it. It's our willingness to go with the flow of life, to jump in the river and let it take us, and not try to jump in and stop the water and try to grab the water. That's what our ego does. But the real us, the authentic version of ourselves, the higher self, the soul, jumps in the river, gets in a raft, and just goes down that thing. Doesn't need to know what's going to happen, but it's going to enjoy every part of it. It's going to be present with every part of it. And that's the opportunity that we have right now. So you can go into avoidance, convince yourself things are going to go back to the way that they were, drop into a deeper place, distract yourself with video games, movies, Netflix, drugs, partying, whatever it is. None of that's wrong, but your life has value. It's sacred. It's your journey. It's your movie. It's your story. And if you value it, wouldn't you want to have the most epic journey that you possibly could? That thought of being on your deathbed or being in the assisted living home and looking back and saying, wow, I kept myself in this really tiny box and I didn't stretch and I never found out who I really was until maybe now. So my entire message here is I'm encouraging everybody to see the opportunity here. To say, this is it. I am no longer avoiding. I am no longer a slave to my mental prison. I'm no longer trapped by the patterns and the behaviors of yesterday and months ago and years ago. Right now in this moment, I choose a new path. And I consistently act in alignment with that path. And I create a vision. And I ask myself, what would be the most exciting story that I could write for me? And you start putting your energy into that rather than having it get siphoned out with the fear narratives in the media and getting caught into that circus. Again, very easy to do, but you can pull yourself back, center, and allow yourself to go through the healing that you need to go through. This can be a heavy process. This can be a lot for people. It was a lot for me. But the other side of that, when all of these things are falling away that aren't serving you anymore, are gone, and you start to get that sense of who you really are, it's a beautiful place of freedom. It's a beautiful place of not being a slave to your emotions, not being a slave to your mind, where you're not even in control. You don't have that constant inner conflict. You can trust who you are, and you can trust this path that's unfolding before all of us. So that's my message. Embrace the unknown. Jump in the river. Let it flow. Anything that's coming up, be with it. any resistance that the old version of you is putting up, just observe it, see it for what it is, and choose differently. You get to pick the rules of the game now. You are the chooser. You are the director of the movie. And life is helping us to see that right now. No matter what situation you might find yourself in, deep acceptance of where you're at, and then realize, I'd like to choose something different. I'd like to do this differently. I'd like to live this way. That place of I'd like to, I would prefer, instead of I have to, I need to, I should. Just presence into who you are. And this is a beautiful time. It's a brand new cycle of life that's ushering in. And all of these systems of oppression and manipulation and corruption and inauthentic ways of survival mentality, all of our energy being in our survival centers constantly, overstimulation, that's all about to go out the window. And it's about time that it did. And it's all your choice. It is all your choice. So that's my message for today. Much love to everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.